Tom Wheeler sat in a booth at the bar, slowly sipping his drink, his tablet lying on the table. The constant pressure in his head bothered him a little, but he managed. Today was supposed to be the end of the most confusing situation a man could find himself in his opinion, although everything was different before. He met his wife Melinda while they were both in college. They were both pursuing business degrees and took several classes together. They spent a lot of time studying together and eventually helped each other graduate with good grades. During this time, they started dating and fell in love with each other. They got married after graduation. Tom got a job as an accountant at a financial company, and Melinda decided to sell real estate. She knew that you could make a lot of money selling luxury real estate, and Tom agreed with this. So she took additional courses, got her license, and joined an agency in the city. The first 5 years were great for them. They both made good money and eventually bought a house. They marked every room in the house and made love several times a week. 5 years after their wedding, Tom Jr. was born. A year later, Timmy joined them. A year later, Lisa appeared in their lives. Melinda had difficulties with Lisa and asked Tom to have a vasectomy, which he did. Tom enjoyed his role as a father and was actively involved in raising the children, feeding them, changing dirty diapers, doing everything possible. He was always there for them, rocking them to sleep or simply supporting Melinda. Sex between spouses has become less frequent, which is not surprising given the presence of 3 small and active children. But Tom never complained. He loved his family and was willing to do anything for them. His job at the firm was secure, and he always worked during banking hours, which meant he rarely had to stay late. He also did not have to travel for business, although he played golf with colleagues a couple of times a month. He regularly received raises and occasional raises. He was just a few steps away from being a CFO when his life went downhill. Meanwhile, Melinda progressed successfully in her work and was often recognized as the best real estate salesman in the area. To be successful in this field, you need to be available at all times and sometimes travel for business. This was the case with Melinda, and Tom accepted it as part of her job. He knew she could achieve anything and promised to support her career. So it didn't surprise him when she sometimes had to stay late at work showing properties or having dinner with a client. There were also times when she went on business trips for a day or two, sometimes for weekends, to conferences or meetings with clients. He never reproached her for this unless it interfered with important events such as birthdays, planned vacations, or anniversaries. Melinda always gave him advance notice and made sure to be available for family events. Over time, however, she began to be absent more and more often. Then she started having girls' nights, as she called them, to relieve stress. Again, Tom did not reproach her, since he himself sometimes spent time with friends. Of course, along with this, the amount of sex was constantly decreasing. Again, Tom didn't complain. He believed that his wife would never cheat on him, so he gave her time to herself and used it to communicate with the children. Life in the Wheeler family continued, but over the years he began to notice some things. First, he noticed a clear difference in the children. Tom, or Junior as he was called, was a copy of his father. They both had sandy hair and piercing blue eyes. Except for the difference in age, they could be mistaken for twins. Timmy, however, had dark hair and brown eyes, and over time became physically larger and more muscular than his older brother. Lisa inherited her mother's blonde hair and green eyes, but very few of her father's side of the family. His mother mentioned it several times, but he didn't want to accept the idea that his wife was cheating on him. Besides, he loved children so much that he could not bear the thought that they might not be his. Then he began to notice changes in Melinda's attitude towards him. She was often absent until late at night, without even bothering to notify him. When he mentioned this, she replied sharply that it was none of his business. Many times, when she returned late, she immediately ran to the bathroom to take a shower, without saying a word to him or the children. When the youngest Tom turned 10, he decided to put an end to all questions about the parents of children and ordered a DNA kit. When he arrived, he followed the instructions and took samples from all the children, himself and Melinda, waiting until she fell asleep. He sent them and waited patiently for the results, hoping to finally calm his mother down. When the results came back, he was shocked. Junior was definitely his son, and oddly enough, so was Lisa, but the report said Timmy was conceived by someone else. He thought it was a mistake and ordered another kit from another laboratory. He sent these samples and waited impatiently, but the results were the same. This meant that Melinda had been cheating on him for at least 9 to 10 years. He decided to hire a private detective and assigned her to follow her for a couple of weeks. When he met with the detective to receive the report, he was completely stunned. According to the report, which included photos and videos, Melinda had sex with another man at least once a week. The report said they always met at the houses she was selling. Her girls' nights were just a cover for public parties with this man. He examined the man's face carefully and noticed a striking resemblance to Timmy. Now he understood why they had hardly made love lately. She was already too busy having sex with someone else. Worse than the video of her having sex were the conversations in which her lover humiliated him, calling him a weakling and a cuckold. "Who is this man?" Tom asked the detective. "This is none other than Jake Winthrop," the detective said. "He seems to be a family lawyer, but in reality he is a slippery guy. I would call him a piece of crap, but that would be an insult to all pieces of crap. He has a reputation as a seducer of married women and a destroyer of families. It is known that he deliberately makes women pregnant so that he can then demand huge alimony payments from the husbands whose lives he destroyed. In short, Jake takes pleasure in ruining people's lives. And once he grabs a woman, he almost never lets go." "And he remains unpunished?" Tom asked. "For now, yes," the detective replied. "His father is an influential high court judge with friends in high places. Every time Jake gets into trouble, Dad comes and helps him out." Tom took out his phone and showed Timmy a photo. "It seems?" Tom asked, showing the detective the photo. "Yes, very similar," said the detective. He took out a rather thick folder and handed it to Tom. "You can have this. This is a copy of my file on Winthrop. Your wife, of course, knows how to choose." "Thank you," Tom said with a heavy sigh. "Good luck," the detective said. "Good luck," the detective said. "Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with." Tom paid the bill, thanked the detective again, and left. No wonder things had gone wrong in their marriage, he thought. Suddenly, he remembered those rare occasions when she came home and demanded that he satisfy her. He took the children to their parents and asked if they could stay the night. "Of course," said his mother. "Is everything okay, Tom?" she asked. "You don't look well." He shook his head. "No," he said. "I'll tell you later." Returning home, he sat down at the kitchen table, his laptop and briefcase open and ready. It was after 1 in the morning when Melinda finally came home. He looked at her, noticing her disheveled appearance. He smelled cigarettes, beer, and something else on her. "Sit down," he said. "We need to talk." "Later," she said. "I need to take a shower." "I said sit on your ass," he shouted. She recoiled from his scream. Tom never raised his voice to her. "Please keep your voice down," she said, sitting down on a chair. "You'll wake the children." "My parents have them tonight," he said. "About? For what?" she asked. "Because we need to talk, and I didn't want to worry them," he said. "What's happened?" she asked. "How long have you been cheating on me?" he asked. "How dare you suggest such a thing?" she exclaimed. "I never." "Shut the fuck up," he snapped, throwing the DNA test results in front of her. She looked at the report, not understanding what it meant. "What is this?" she asked. "DNA test results," he said. "I even did 2 tests in different laboratories to make sure. You will be pleased to know that the youngest and Lisa are mine. Timmy, no. This means that you have been cheating on me for at least 9 years and 9 months. Do you even know who the father is?" She shook her head slowly. "I was hoping it was you," she said. "But you knew otherwise, right?" he asked her. "I suspected," she said. "And yet you forced me to have a vasectomy, knowing that I was not Timmy's father, and you never stopped cheating." He threw photos of her in bed with Jake in front of her. Her eyes widened when she saw the pictures. "You bastard," she exclaimed. "You were following me. How dare you?" "No, bitch," he growled. "How dare you? According to the detective's report, you sleep with that clown every week and push me away most of the time. How many times have you given me second-rate sex? How many times?" "I don't know," she said. "Several times, probably." "You do not know?" he asked sarcastically. "You slept with him so many times over the years that you don't even remember? Who else did you cheat on me with behind my back?" "You don't understand," she said. "There, in this world, everything is not so simple. You have no idea how difficult it is to sell property in this area." "So you're offering your body to sweeten the deal, right?" he asked. "No wonder you always win awards for best sales." She cowered in her seat, but Tom continued. "I also noticed this guy never used protection," he said. "How do you know he didn't infect you with something and you didn't bring it home to me? Is this your plan? Infect me with some disease so that I get sick or, worse, die?" "No," she said decisively. "Look, it was just sex. I did this for us. Nothing I did concerned you." "Are you kidding me now?" he asked. "You forced me to raise a child that wasn't even mine, risked infecting me with a deadly disease, and you have the audacity to claim that it had nothing to do with me? You are crazy." "So what are you planning to do?" she asked. "I'm going to see a lawyer to start the divorce process," he said. "In the meantime, I moved all your things into the guest room and changed the lock on our bedroom door. I hope you didn't sleep with your lover in our house." "No, I didn't sleep," she said, "and there will be no divorce." "You're kidding, right?" he asked. "My client is a high-powered family lawyer," she said. "You mean Jake Bloody Winthrop, your lover," he said. She shrugged. "Whatever," she said. "He said if you threaten divorce, he will represent me for free. And he said we will destroy you. Not only will you lose your children, but also your home. You will pay so much alimony and child support that you will be financially ruined. Your reputation will also suffer. He will destroy you in every way. If you divorce me, you will become a beggar." "We'll see," said Tom. She grinned. "Yeah, we'll see," she said, turning to go upstairs. "Now, are you going to bed or what?" "I never want to touch you again," he said. "As you wish," she said. He watched her go upstairs. I heard her trying to open the bedroom door. After making sure it was locked, she went to the guest room. He waited until he heard the door close before heading upstairs with his laptop and briefcase. He visited several divorce lawyers over the next few days, and they all told him the same thing. Sure, he could have filed for divorce, but their state doesn't allow for divorce based on infidelity. The judge will give her the children and the house, forcing him to pay the mortgage. In addition, he will have to pay significant child support for 3 children, even though Timmy is not his. From the government's perspective, the fact that his name appears on the birth certificate is critical. He will then have to pay spousal support since their most recent tax returns show that he earns significantly more than she does. Additionally, he could lose half of his 401k and half of their joint assets, and he might have to pay for a lawyer Jake and court costs. This really sucks. "Listen, Mr. Payne Wheeler," the last lawyer he spoke to told him. "This is not about fairness. The court doesn't care about that. It's about the economy and the kids." Tom did the math in his head, using the numbers the lawyer had given him. If true, he could lose more than 60% of his net salary, and he'll become a full-time parent, perhaps seeing the kids once every couple of weeks if he's lucky. Meanwhile, Melinda will live in the house at his expense, cheating with her vile lover in his marital bed. To hell with this, he thought. Then he had an idea, something he had read about once. "What about some kind of agreement?" he asked. "You mean a prenuptial agreement?" asked the lawyer. "Yes," said Tom. "I suppose we could put together something that would be legally binding," he said. "You know that for it to be valid, your wife will have to sign it." "I assumed it," Tom said. "Okay," said the lawyer. "Why don't you think about what you would like to see in this agreement for a few days and then get back to me?" Tom followed the lawyer's advice and spent several days thinking about what he would like to see in the agreement. Meanwhile, the relationship between him and Melinda remained frosty, and the children noticed it. They talked little and continued to sleep in separate rooms. "Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce?" asked the younger Tom. "Don't know. I think not, son," he said, hugging him. "I wouldn't want to choose between you and Mom," he said. "Me too," Tom replied. A few days later, he met with a lawyer and drew up an agreement. That evening, he took the children back to their parents and explained the situation to his mother, who was shocked. "I'm so sorry, son," she said. "What are you going to do?" "I drew up an agreement with a lawyer," he said. "I'll give it to Melinda tonight. Either she will accept him or we will get divorced. Let me know how it goes, and for God's sake, don't do anything stupid," she said. "Don't worry," he said. That night, he was sitting at the kitchen table when Melinda finally came home. Once again, she looked like she was at a party with her lover. "Sit down," he told her. "We need to discuss something." "Can I at least take a shower?" she asked. "Later," he said. "Sit down." She knew better than to argue, so she sat down. He took out an envelope and placed the agreement in front of her. "What is this?" she asked. "I hope you haven't filed for divorce. It would be a big mistake." "No, it's a prenuptial agreement," Tom said. "It sets out what our marriage will look like from now on and how assets will be divided in the event of divorce." She began to read the document, gradually becoming annoyed as she read. "I don't understand. What does this all mean?" she asked. "This is what you wanted," he said. "I didn't want this," she said. "No anniversaries or birthdays, no gifts for Christmas. What kind of nonsense is this?" "This is what you wanted," he said. "False, loveless marriage. We will live in the same house, we will take care of the children, but everything will be different. You can sleep with whoever you want, but as long as you have other men, you will never share my bed. At the same time, I will be free to sleep with anyone. We both agree not to bring our lovers into the house or show it off." "But I don't want that," she said. "I love you." "No, you don't," said Tom. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated on me in the first place. And to be honest, right now I don't love you either. I do this solely for the sake of the children. By the way, the agreement states that if you become pregnant, you are obliged to have an abortion at your own expense. I'm already raising one of your bastards, and I'm not going to pay for the others. The agreement also requires you to loan out your wedding and engagement rings for the time being." He took her left hand and took off the rings, putting them in his pocket. "At the first opportunity, I will remove you from my medical and insurance policies," he said, "also removing you as a beneficiary of my 401k. From now on, we will have 3 separate accounts. One will be for paying bills, mortgage, and household expenses. We will both contribute half of the costs to this bill. The amounts are indicated in the table. We'll both have our own accounts for the rest. You will be responsible for your car and its maintenance, and I will be responsible for mine. Also, we will be filing taxes separately, but as married people. You will be responsible for taking care of the children as before, well, at least when you are at home, and I will continue to do general maintenance of the house and yard. We will act like a married couple in public for the sake of the children, at least until they leave home. If any of these conditions are violated, the next step is divorce. The division of assets will be as specified. We'll sell the house, split the proceeds, take what's ours, and go our separate ways without each other's support. Have questions?" "What if we decide to reconcile?" she asked. "If this happens, you will have to prove to me that you have been celibate for at least 6 months and have a clean bill of health," he said. "How can I prove this?" she asked. "Not my problem," he said. "What about you?" she asked. "What about me?" Tom asked in response. "You are the one who wants to have everything at once. Now you can have it. I'm not someone who chases others for sex." "How long should this last?" she asked. "If you look, you will see that the agreement expires a year after Lisa leaves home," he said. "If nothing changes by then, the divorce will take effect. We will sell the place, divide the capital, Take what we have and call it a day." "You're serious about this," she said. "Yes," he said. "Tomorrow we will go to a lawyer, sign the documents, and they will be registered." He took a business card from his pocket. "Be there at 1:00 p.m. sharp. By the way, you should take a good look at this." He threw a copy of Jake's file onto the table. "What is this?" she asked. "This is a file on your lover, Jake Bloody Winthrop," Tom said. "A real piece of crap. You should at least know something about the person you chose to take my place. And you should know that you are not the only married woman in his little harem." He stood up and went to his bedroom, leaving Melinda alone at the table. He saw her leafing through the folder as he went upstairs. The next day, Melinda met him at the lawyer's office. She didn't look happy, but he didn't care. They signed the agreement, the lawyer verified the signatures and certified them. He made copies for each of them. "I hope this works for you," he said, shaking their hands. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll go register this." "This is not what I wanted," Melinda told Tom. "I know," he said. "You expected me to just swallow your infidelity. Then you threatened to ruin my life and make me a beggar if I refused to agree to your terms. This is not what I wanted, but it is what it is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. Goodbye." With these words, he left. Over the next couple of months, everything settled down. Tom didn't know if Melinda was still dating Jake, and she never provided any information. She no longer came home disheveled and stopped going out with the girls. Sure, she could have been meeting Jake or someone else in the office, but there was no sign of that, no obvious smells or clothes out of place. Then her birthday came. The children bought her a card and several small gifts. They even baked her a cake together, and the younger Tom bought a liter of ice cream. He smiled when he saw how much effort they put into the cake. That evening the children gave her their gifts, and they ate cake and ice cream. The kids sang "Happy Birthday" while Tom filmed it. Melinda noticed that he did not join the celebration, but he did eat a small piece of cake and some ice cream when Lisa handed them to him. But Melinda couldn't help but notice that there was nothing from her husband, not a card, not a gift hidden somewhere, not even a note. Later, as he was going to bed, he stopped in front of her closed bedroom door and listened. He smiled to himself when he heard her sobs. "It's Christmas in a few weeks, so." They bought gifts for the children as usual and took the children shopping. Tom reminded Melinda not to buy him anything. "Please," she begged. "Just something small." "No," he said. "Do not even think about it." He saw how bad it made her feel, but he didn't care. Such holidays have always been special for them, but nothing more. That Christmas morning, they gathered around the tree and Tom played Santa, handing out gifts to the children. They bought Melinda a can of popcorn, which he gave to her, and happily accepted the set of screwdrivers they bought for him. But there was nothing from Tom for Melinda, and nothing from her for him, not even cards. While the children were busy playing with their things, Melinda ran upstairs to her room, where she spent most of the morning crying. And again Tom smiled to himself. Let her feel a little pain for a change, he thought to himself. Does this mean I'm a bastard? He asked himself. Yes, he thought. But what the hell? Later they went to his parents' house where they had dinner. Melinda didn't say much, but Tom could tell she was hurt. She didn't think he meant what he said after the wedding. What's going on with Melinda? Asked his mother when they were alone. She looks like she's in a lot of pain. Did you do something? I simply fulfilled our agreement, he said. She understood what he meant and sighed heavily. Tom, please, she said. It's Christmas. Can't you let go of the pain for just one day? He shook his head. She needs to understand how much she hurt me, he said. After cheating for over 9 years, she thought she could just bat her eyelids and have her way. No more. Maybe after she experiences a little pain, she will come to her senses. Will you ever forgive her, Tom? Asked his mother. I don't know, said Tom. How long will it be going on? She asked. I don't know that either, Mom, he said. It's her business. At most, no more than 10 years, but she can end it any time she really wants. I hope you're doing the right thing, son, she said. I hope so too, he said. But remember, you're the one who said I need to put my kids first. And so I did. They need both a father and a mother. Yes, they do, she said. But they need a father and mother who love each other and work together for their good. Maybe I should talk to her. Do what you think is best, Mom, he said. After dinner, Tom joined his father and children in the living room to watch football. Melinda was sitting with Tom's mother in the kitchen. Tom heard Melinda's sobs and knew that if anyone could reason with her, it would be his mother. That evening, they drove home in silence. The kids were fast asleep in the back seat, and Melinda stared out the window the whole way home. As he pulled up to the house, Melinda looked at him. He saw the sadness in her eyes. I'm so sorry, she said quietly before getting out of the car. This is the beginning, thought Tom. To this day, she has never apologized for anything. They dragged the children inside and laid them in their beds. Tom headed towards the master bedroom, but Melinda stopped him. Can we spend the night together, just once? She begged. He looked at her and thought for a long time before answering. Only tonight, and only because it's Christmas. No sex, he said. She looked down. She was in pain. Then she nodded her head. Okay, she said. No sex. I just want to know you're here. Tom opened the master bedroom door and let her inside. For the first time in months, she saw the inside of what used to be their room. She noticed that he turned all their photographs over and took their wedding portrait off the wall. I love what you've done with this place, she said sarcastically. He shrugged. It's just a place to sleep, he said. Why don't you put on your pajamas? Are you sure this is necessary? She asked. Yes, he said. Okay, she said. I'll be back soon. By the time she returned, he had put on his pajamas and climbed onto the huge bed. She closed the door and got into bed with him, clinging to him. I missed it so much, she said. Me too, he said in response. I know it's all my fault, she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. No arguments, he said. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. Maybe one day, he said. I don't know yet. Let's get some sleep, okay? Okay, she said. Hold me, please. He hugged her and pulled her close to him. He caught her scent and closed his eyes. Damn her, he thought. Why did she have to ruin everything? The next morning he woke up and felt that she delivered him pleasure. At first he wanted to jump out of bed and hit her, but he decided what the hell. Good morning, sleepyhead, she said. Good morning, he said. I think it's too much for no sex. Well, it's been 4 months since we've done anything, she said. I'm at least 4 months old, he said. I'm not sure about you. The same thing happened to me, but I think I deserve an excavation, she said, getting out of bed. I'll clean up and go make breakfast. Good idea, he told her, especially since the children will wake up soon. The rest of the day went pretty well. Tom spent as much time as possible with the kids after clearing snow from the driveway and walkway. Melinda was busy in the kitchen and cleaning the house from the previous day. Several times she found herself crying. This was the first time her husband didn't give her anything for Christmas, not even a card. Christmas had always been her favorite holiday, and it pained her to think that she had gotten more from strangers and local businesses than from her own husband. The rest of the week flew by quickly. Both Tom and Melinda did not work, so they spent as much time as possible with the children. Melinda knew better than to put pressure on her husband for another night in bed, but she secretly hoped that he would invite her. She spent her nights alone in her bed, sobbing into her pillow, realizing, probably for the first time, that she had given up on some forbidden sex. A week after Christmas, a family sat in front of a huge television watching the ball drop in New York City. They counted together with the host of the program. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. They hugged and heard fireworks exploding next door. Tom turned to Melinda and, without thinking, kissed her as hard as he could for the first time in months. When he pulled away, he saw tears in her eyes. Tom, she said, do you want to hear my New Year's resolution? Of course, he replied. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you back, she said. He looked at her carefully, trying to find signs of deception, but did not see them. "It's quite an ambitious statement," he said. "I know," she replied, "but I swear to God I will do it no matter what it takes." He nodded. "And if I fail to get you back by the end of the year, I will accept your decision to divorce and leave you alone forever." "We'll see," he said. She grabbed his head and kissed him again. "I haven't told you this in a long time, but I want you to know, Tom Wheeler, that I love you," she said. He kissed her forehead and pulled her close to him. "I love you too," he said quietly. "You know what you need to do," he whispered in her ear. "I know," she replied. "Let's go upstairs. I'll show you something." "Okay," he said. "Let's put the kids to bed first." They gathered the children and put them to bed, then went to her room. She closed the door and took off her clothes. Her below belts was a fairly new tattoo. Looking closely, he read the inscription, "Property of Tom Wheeler." "I'm impressed," he said. "That's not all," she said, opening her dresser drawer. As he looked, she pulled out what looked like a leather thong with metal accents. "What the hell is this?" he asked. "It's a lockable chastity belt," she said as she put it on. Taking the key, she locked the device on herself and handed him the key. "This is the only key I have, so don't lose it. You can let me go when I get home if you want." "Key?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "The agreement requires me to prove to you that I have been chaste for at least 6 months. I haven't been with anyone since we signed the agreement, but I don't know if you'll ever believe me. It was the only way I could think of to prove it to you." "When did you decide to do all this?" he asked. "The other day when I was shopping," she said. "I wanted to surprise you." "Well, you definitely did," he said. "That's not all," she told him. "More?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I'll be leaving work this week." "But," he began. She interrupted him. "My friend Cheryl said they had an opening in the mortgage department of the bank where she works. She says that with my experience, I will be an absolute candidate," she said. "I have an interview scheduled for Tuesday morning. As soon as I am accepted, I will leave my job at the real estate agency. My base salary will be a little higher, and I will lose the commission checks I was receiving, but the benefits will be better, and I will have a regular schedule. This bank is just a few blocks from my office," he said. "Maybe we could ride to work together if you want." She nodded. "I thought so too," she said. He thought for a moment and finally nodded. "Okay, let's try," he said. "Remember, 6 months." "I know," she replied. "And at the end of this time, I will get tested." "What made you do all this?" he asked. "You know how I feel about birthdays, Christmas, and other holidays," she said. "I felt so bad when you didn't get me anything for my birthday, and I thought maybe you'd give up on Christmas. But you didn't, and I felt so alone. It is so painful. Your mother talked to me while you and the boys were watching football and made me realize that if I ever want to get you back, I need to try my best. I realized how much I hurt you, and I never want to hurt you again. And I can't live like this anymore. It's killing me inside." "Well, I'm impressed that you decided to take such steps," he said. "And a contract is a contract. Okay, I'll give you 6 months. Let's see how everything goes further." "Thank you," she said, hugging Tom. "What about Jake?" Tom asked. "When was the last time you saw him?" "I stopped everything when we signed the papers," she said. "I read the file on him and felt such shame. He called me and I told him I couldn't do this anymore. He wasn't too happy." "I can imagine," said Tom. "How did you contact him?" "I worked with him for a couple of months, helping him find space for his new office," she said. "He wanted to celebrate the day we closed the deal on his new premises. He led me to his office, where a table was set. We ate and drank wine, and I felt a little, well, weird. The next moment, we were doing it right on the floor." "What a cool guy," Tom said. She grinned. "I felt guilty after that," she said. "A few days later, he came to me and wanted to repeat it. I told him no way, but he showed me the video. Yes, he signed us up that day. He said that if I don't agree to his terms, he will show this video to everyone, you, my boss, my friends, everyone." So he drugged you and then blackmailed you? Asked Tom. She nodded. Yes, she said. I felt like I had no choice. That's why I agreed to his terms. For 10 whole years? He asked. Why didn't you tell me? We could stop this. I saw what he did to other men, she said. He said it was nothing compared to what he would do to you. Besides, he said that his father is a powerful judge, and he will do anything to put you behind bars or worse if you try to stop him. When I read the file, I finally realized how bad he was. For the first time I felt scared. I mean, it's really scary. And now? Tom asked. I'm still very scared, but I think he's finally realized that I'm done with him, she said. I hope so, said Tom. There's just one more problem left. Timmy? She asked. He nodded. We'll have to tell him someday, Tom said. I know, Melinda replied. Maybe when he's a little older. I'm just afraid that you'll start treating him differently. It's hard knowing he's not your real son. I may not be his biological father, but he is my son in every other way that matters, Tom said. He is not to blame for what happened. Besides, I loved him before I knew all this, and I will always love him. Thank you, she said, hugging him. I know I don't deserve another chance, but thank you for letting me try. Melinda kept her promise. She went for an interview and was hired on the spot. She then handed in her resignation from the real estate agency. She and Tom started commuting to work together, and things looked like they were getting better. Each morning began with Tom locking the chastity belt, and each day ended with him removing it. They abstained from sex as per their agreement, but ended each day with a goodnight kiss and a hug. 2 months later, Tom was at a bar with some friends from the office after work. He had just picked up his drink when he heard a scream behind him. Wheeler, you son of a bitch! I'll kill you, motherfucker! The angry man shouted. Tom turned around and was about to say something when he was hit in the face with a pool cue. He felt the pain of the blow and saw stars, and then nothing. The next thing he remembered was waking up in a hospital room with something in his throat. When he came to, he saw medical workers around him checking his vital signs and examining his eyes. Doctor, he's waking up, he heard the nurse's voice. He saw a man in a white medical coat enter the room and lean over him, examining him. Okay, pull out the breathing tube, he ordered. It's all right, Mr. Wheeler, the doctor said. Hold on, we'll take out the breathing tube and examine you. After they pulled out the tube, they examined him carefully. Melinda and another man in a dark suit entered the room, and the doctor stood up. Glad you're here, he told them. What's happened? Tom wheezed. We've kept you in a medically induced coma for the last 5 days, the doctor said. We wanted to make sure the swelling around your brain went down. 5 days? Asked Tom. Yes, said the doctor. We almost lost you a couple of times. Damn, Tom said. How did this happen? It was Jake, Melinda said. He texted me after work, and I told him to leave me alone, or I would file a report against him. He got mad and followed you. It took several people to pull him away from you. The police have charged him with attempted murder. Is he still in prison? Tom asked. No, said the man in the suit. His father bailed him out. Damn it, Tom said. Don't worry, said the man in the suit. We have officers monitoring him, and he wears an ankle bracelet. If he crosses the wrong way, we will catch him. What about the children? Asked Tom. Your parents have them, Melinda said. We have another problem, the doctor said, showing an X-ray on the screen. Which? Tom asked. The doctor motioned for the man in the suit to leave the room. He closed the door for privacy and returned to the screen. Here, the doctor said, pointing to a dark spot on the image. We brought a specialist in to take a look, but it looks like you may have an inoperable brain tumor. What? Melinda asked, shocked. In my experience, a tumor of this size and in this location is usually inoperable, the doctor said. Have you experienced headaches or vision problems recently? Yes, some, said Tom. I thought it was just stress. Well, I'm sure stress played a role, but I guess that's the source of these headaches, the doctor said. And you're saying it's inoperable? Tom asked. In my experience, yes, the doctor said. That's why we have a specialist for this case. How much time do I have? Tom asked. It's hard to say, the doctor replied. Maybe 6 months, a year at most. Melinda burst into tears when she heard this from the doctor. Is it possible that you are mistaken? Tom asked. Yes, it's possible, said the doctor. That's why we have a specialist. We'll keep you here for a few more days, and they'll run more tests while you're here. In the meantime, I recommend that you rest. Thank you, doctor, Tom said. After the doctor left the room, Melinda burst into tears, sobbing into Tom's chest. No, 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 please, God, no, she sobbed, wetting his blanket with her tears. He kissed her head and hugged her as best he could. Everything will be fine, he said. If something happens, you will be provided for. I never took you off the insurance, so if the worst happens, your mortgage will be covered and you'll have enough money to survive. I don't care about money or mortgages. I only care about you. I don't want anything to happen to you, she cried. I love you, Tom. Please do not leave me. Please do not die. I can't live without you. Promise you won't die. I'll try, he said, but it's not in my control. She covered his face with kisses, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sorry about everything, she said. I've been such a terrible wife to you. I promise if you survive, I will be the best wife you could ever want. He ran his hand through her hair, tears streaming down his face. It's okay, he said. We will deal with this the same way we dealt with everything else. Listen, don't tell the kids about the tumor. Let's find out what the specialist says first, okay? Okay, she said. At that moment, a nurse entered the room with a tray. I need to check your vital signs and draw some blood, she said. Then we'll run some tests. I'm a little hungry, Tom said. When can I eat? After we run a couple of tests, the nurse said as she ushered Melinda out of the room. You can come back tomorrow, the nurse said. I love you, Melinda said as the nurse closed the door. The next few days passed quickly. Tom was put through a series of tests and examined by specialists. All he was told was that they were working to figure out what they could do about the tumor. His parents came almost every day, as did Melinda. She brought the children, and they all caught up. Are you going to be okay? His father asked him one day. Yes, everything will be fine, said Tom. His father nodded. Melinda and your mother are taking this all very hard, he said. We'll do everything we can. Thanks, Dad, Tom said. His boss came and talked to him for a while. So Melinda said you have a tumor, he said. Anything to avoid working, right? They had a good laugh about it. Look, I just want you to know that your job is yours, he said. You have 300 days of sick leave, so take as much as you need and get better. If Melinda or the kids need anything, they should contact me, okay? Thank you, boss, Tom said. Eventually, Tom was discharged and Melinda took him home. It felt good to be back in my own bed in my own home. Melinda turned out to be a wonderful, caring wife and practically never left his side. Over the next few weeks, Tom found that he could move around the house, but he constantly felt pressure in his head and often had to stop himself from falling. Sometimes the headaches became so severe that he could barely function, and he often felt dizzy. Specialists carried out ongoing tests and took several scans of his head to monitor the progress of the tumor. There was still no news about whether it could be removed. One evening, he sat down with Melinda. We need to talk, he told her. About what? She asked. There's one thing that needs to be sorted out, he told her. Jake? She asked. He nodded. Yes, he said. Is he still trying to contact you? Yes, he's trying, she replied. Okay, he said. I have an idea, and I need to do it now while I am still able to function, but I will need your help. Are you ready? Certainly. I'll do anything, Tom, she said. Here's my plan, he said. 2 weeks later, he was sitting at a bar near his home, sipping his drink and watching a video on his tablet. The private investigator he hired did a great job installing cameras in the front room and bedrooms. The system he used streamed everything to a cloud server that Tom could access from anywhere there was internet. If everything goes according to plan, this whole shitty mess with Jake will end tonight. The children were with his parents, and Melinda was home alone. But Tom knew she wouldn't be alone for long. Jake rang the doorbell at exactly 9:00 p.m., just as they knew he would do. While watching the video, Tom saw his wife take a deep breath and then open the door. Jake burst into the room and looked around it cheekily. "I knew you couldn't stay away from me forever," he said, looking her over. According to their plan, she was wearing a short skirt and a thin t-shirt without a bra. "This is the last time I intend to see you," she told him. "After tonight, I never want to see you again." "Whatever you say," he replied with a grin. "Where is your wimp? Is he sucking his thumb or licking his wounds?" "He's gone," she said. "It's a shame," Jake said. "I was hoping he would be here to show him how a real man has sex with his woman." "I'm not your woman," Melinda said. "You are mine if I say so," he replied. "Now, take off your skirt." "All right," she said, unbuttoning her skirt. She let him fall to the floor, exposing her locked chastity belt. "What the hell is this?" Jake asked. "This is my chastity belt," she said, "and it's locked." "Open it, damn it," he said. She shook her head. "I can't," she said. "Tom has the only key." "What?" he asked. "You let your husband lock you into this? Why, this is violence." She smiled. "No," she said. "I locked myself and happily gave him the key, and if you look closer, you will see that there below the belt is property, exclusively." "Well, let's see," he said, taking out a knife. Tom was shocked this shouldn't have happened. They hoped the police would be monitoring the ankle bracelet and would respond by then. The knife changed everything. Tom had seen enough and turned off the tablet. It only took him a few minutes to drive up to the house. Opening the glove compartment, he pulled out his .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, inserted a full magazine, and chambered a round. He got out of the car, trying not to slam the door, and walked to the front door. Looking out the window, he saw Melinda sitting on the couch begging for her life, while Jake brandished a knife. Tom took a deep breath and opened the door, holding the gun behind his back. When he opened the door, Jake looked at him, his eyes filled with hatred. Well, who brought it?" he said, pointing the knife at Tom. "Get out of my house," Tom said. "Or what, wimp?" Jake asked, waving a knife. "Maybe I'll cut out your heart and feed it to your wife. Yes, that's exactly what I'll do." He rushed at Tom, but only managed to get a few feet before Tom pulled the gun from behind his back and took aim. It was difficult for him because his vision was blurred and he saw two Jakes. Hoping he was aiming at the right Jake, he pulled the trigger twice. Tom's head felt like it was pounding and his vision became blurry. The last thing he remembered was the floor closing in on him. For the second time in 2 months, Tom woke up in a hospital room. This time it was completely different. He heard the fan and monitoring sounds. The room was completely dark, and he could not move. He also felt pressure from the bandages on his head. A nurse came into the room and adjusted something next to his bed, and he fell asleep again. The next time he woke up, it was not so dark, and the room was full of nurses and other medical workers. An elderly man in a medical gown examined him and smiled. There were no more fans, but my throat hurt and my lips were dry. "How are you feeling, Mr. Ritzy Wheeler?" asked the doctor. Tom tried to speak, but couldn't. The nurse gave him a piece of ice, and he sucked on it to be able to speak. "Like hell," Tom wheezed. The doctor laughed. "It's normal," he said. "You will be glad to know that we were able to remove your tumor. All that's left is to rest and recover. Your family will be notified, and I'm sure they will want to see you. In the meantime, I recommend that you rest, okay?" "Okay," said Tom. The nurse added something to his Roman 4, and he went back to sleep. The next time he opened his eyes, he saw Melinda and the doctor. Melinda smiled as the doctor examined him. "What's happened?" asked Tom. "Well, the paramedics brought you in a few days ago, and we decided it was time to see what we could do about this tumor," the doctor said. I thought she was inoperable, Tom said. Well, she might have been if we had waited another month or so, the doctor replied. But it still wasn't easy. You'll be staying with us for a while, so just rest for now, okay? I'll come back later. Tom watched the doctor leave the room and turned to Melinda. How are you? He asked. She kissed his cheek and ran her hand over his face. It's better now that you're awake, she said. What happened? He asked. The police came minutes after you shot Jake, she said. He's dead, by the way. The ambulance came and took you here while the police carried out all the necessary procedures in the house. I told them what happened and showed them the video. They ruled it a justifiable homicide and said it was self-defense, so you're above suspicion. The children are with your parents, by the way. I didn't want them to see the house until it was cleaned up. Good idea, said Tom. I hope you don't mind, but when I got here, the doctor said you needed surgery right away, she said. I took care of all the paperwork. Thank you for this, he said. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. Come in, said Tom. The door opened, and an elderly man in an expensive suit entered the room. Tom Wheeler? Asked the man. Yes, Tom answered. Sorry for the intrusion, the man said. My name is Malcolm Winthrop. I'm Jake Winthrop's father. Judge Winthrop? Tom asked. Yes, replied the elderly man. Please call me Malcolm. I just wanted to come in and apologize for what my son did to you and your wife. I've seen the reports and know you acted in self-defense. I want you to know that I don't blame you for what you did. I would do the same myself. I wanted to convey something to you personally. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to Melinda. She opened it and saw a check for $5 million. She showed it to Tom, who was shocked. It's really not necessary, Tom said. Actually, it's necessary, Malcolm said. What my son did to you two is absolutely unforgivable. I've gotten him out of trouble so many times over the years, it's not even funny. If I had known even half of what he did, I would have put him in prison myself. Plus, it's from his trust fund, so yes, it's necessary. Please accept this along with my personal apology. Thank you, said Tom. We accept. I would shake your hand, but I'm a little limited in my movements right now. Is there something you want from us in exchange for this? Malcolm smiled. No, Mr. Busy Wheeler, he said. Just get better. I will, Tom replied. Have a nice day, Malcolm said as he left the room. Tom looked at Melinda, stunned. Well, I guess now we don't have to worry about paying for the kids' college, he said. No, it's not necessary, she replied. Maybe after I recover, you and I can go on a nice cruise and enjoy a second honeymoon, he said. Is it true? Melinda asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. True, he replied, if you want. Oh yes, she said. I really want to. Can I have my rings back? I don't know, Tom said. Maybe it's better to start over with a new set of rings. She screamed with joy and hugged Tom. And of course, a new start means new rules. Which? She asked. Like, no secrets ever, he said. Whatever it is, no matter how bad it is, there are no secrets. Next time I won't be so lenient. There are no secrets, she said, kissing her husband.